Hello everybody. I just wanted to pop in and share with you a little technique about making daisies, painting daisies I should say. Got some pretty daisies and it's one of my favorite things to paint. So grab some paints, grab some watercolor paper if you have some, and let's paint some happy daisies. So the paints that I'm using today are by Prima Marketing. They are the Art Philosophy brand now. I think they rebranded into Art Philosophy. And I'm using the Odyssey set, the Tropical set, and the Classics. So those are fun. And I'm using several different brushes, a couple of filberts, and some flat ones. I love brushes. I love my mermaid brushes. Aren't these awesome? I'm just gonna show you. Yay, mermaid brushes. They are purple and green, and they have scales on them, like mermaids. Ha! Love them. Okay. I'm also using Canson watercolor paper. Actually, I'm using Canson mixed media paper. So if you have watercolor or mixed media paper, either one of them will work. And I'm using a coffee filter for blotting. What else am I using? I'm using black pens. I'm using a Sharpie today because I ruined my Prismacolor pens last week when I was painting on wet paint. So I gotta get new ones of those. Okay, so let's go paint some daisies. I'm excited to share all the daisies that I have been painting the last couple days, getting ready for the online class that I did. And I thought I would go ahead and record the technique that I love to use and then share it, because daisies make me happy, and I'm just thinking that daisies make you happy too. So anyway, so I love to come into my daisies after I've painted them, add some pops of white, use my black pen, and not just do squiggles, but squiggles with meaning. So these are words just in my longhand scroll that I do that just are fun to add in there. This one's Be Always Blooming. I've got another big burst. This is one that I'm going to show you in a little bit how to do. And this one is Everything Blooms in Its Own Time. I do these in my journals all the time. I love painting daisies, and they seem to inspire me to really reflect over things that I'm just grateful for. So then we can get a little fancy. After you paint some fun daisies, like I said, you can use your black pen to go over and enhance some of the areas as well as writing some words, but you can also use them to do some doodle parts of your flower pages. It's always fun to be a little fancy. Here are some other ones I've just started to play around with. These are at different stages. We did a little splattering last night. That's fun. And then on this one, this page is a little bit lighter than some of the other ones that you'll see me do, and that just inspired me to think about what daisies make me feel. Peace, love, and then writing a little bit more. So a typical journal page for me would have painting and words. I feel like the painting is a pre-writing to the words that I have deep inside of me, and sometimes I just can't reach them. I've got to unearth them. So by putting them on paper with painting helps me to just hear my voice a little bit more. All right, without further ado, let's do some painting. Woohoo! I'm going to start out with a flat brush that's a filbert shape. Flat meaning it's not a barrel. And it's a filbert shape that is round tipped. I'm going to do some little pink dot in the middle there. A wonky organic circle just to save that space. what I do is look at a real daisy for inspiration, but I am not a realism painter. I'm a whimsical painter. I like things that have more fun and illustrative techniques. I love photography, so in photography, I believe is where I can capture something that is realistic. In paint, I capture something that is whimsical and is intuitive to me. So I actually looked up the scientific terms for daisy because I thought, oh, wouldn't that be fun to just share those with you? Well, no, my words are better because they're a lot more simple. So I call this dark part the pupil, this area that's around there, the iris, and then we've got some fringe going on, and of course these petals, and these are layered petals. So we're going to get into a little bit of layering as well. But I love this daisy. I have fresh flowers in my house all the time. This one is about 8 days old, but it's still beautiful. This is the stage that I would use it if I was plant staining with it. But we're gonna paint. Okay, so I'm going back to my pink. I've got my organic circle there, and I'm gonna start my petal stroke, which is a pull away and then a pivot. Go get water and more paint, pull away and pivot. And as I am painting, I am rotating my book so that my hand is consistently at the same orientation to my flower. I don't know why I'm getting away from that center so much. I can pull back in. This is just blocking. What this is just saving space, reserving that area for when I am coming back with other colors and making my big, it's going to end up being a plum shade, with a variety of other pinks and purples in it. Okay, my pink is still a little wet, and that's a good thing. It's okay. I'm going to pick up a plum colored brown and pop that in to start to work on that pupil area. I'm going to get a little bit of a smaller brush. This is a flat filbert. It actually was rounded at one point. And I'm going to take some dark purple and line the edge of these petals, and they're wet. As you can tell, there's still going to be some feathering where they're really wet, and that's okay. And I'm only doing a few at a time. And once I do a few at a time, I'm going to go back in with my original pink, go into this petal that I painted purple on the edge, and push that purple more towards the edge while I'm pulling the excess paint back into the petal itself. So you can see I'm pushing that purple to the edge so that there's a line, or a faint line at least, and then working that magenta back into the petal. And I've got a lot of space in between these petals. So what I'm going to do is, now that I have excess paint on my brush from painting these other petals with the purple and the pink, I'm going to come in with that excess paint and actually put some more petals in between what I originally painted. Those are going to be a little lighter, and that's okay because that pushes it back a little bit. And you can see the difference between the colors, and that line is what makes a difference, that purple line, that purple edging. So now I can do a few more. With the purple, I'm going back and either getting more paint or more water and more paint each time. And when it's too dark, like this one's pretty dark, I'm going to take a coffee filter and I am going to lay that coffee filter on my paper and just pat. Notice how I'm not moving the paper. I'm not wiping it around. I'm just patting. And I picked up some of that extra paint. Now I'm going to go back in with my pink and again push that purple to the edge. This is the one that I had to blot. I'm going to push that purple to the edge. So I bet some of you were worried when you saw those splotches. Never a worry. There's never a mistake in art, and there's always something you can do to fix something you may not like. Okay, now I've got extra paint on my brush again, so I am going to just add in some extra petals. Isn't that great how that works? You get automatic shading in there, some depth that starts to be building up because of those dark edges. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and get more purple, come down the edges of these, and notice like that one I'm actually in the white. I'm not even on the petal itself. And that's okay. I'm going to walk on the wild side and do 5 petals this time. Now because water has sat in my purple pan for a longer period of time now, I'm getting more plum, you can see over here, than the rest of my flower. And that's okay, because my purposes is to have a variety of colors in this flower. So what I'm going to do to help that along so there's a cohesive look, instead of this all being more purple and this being more pink, is I'm going to just wet my brush, pick up some paint from that petal itself, and then just come into some other areas across the board or across the paper and add in that same plum color either from there or actually going in and getting some purple and having that as another layer. And you want to make sure that you're not breaking down your paper too much. As you can see, this is mixed media paper. If you're using watercolor paper, you're going to be able to do this a lot many more times than I am because I've got mixed media paper, but mixed media paper is allowing me to do it many more times than, you know, a drawing paper or a cardstock would be. I'm going to add some purple back in some of those areas. Look at how bright that is. So of course I can go ahead and get my coffee filter, pick up some of the extra paint, go back in with some pink, and make that purple. Make that plum happen over there. So I've got all these different shades in my rainbow, or not my rainbow, I guess, right? It can't be rainbow if it's just purples and pinks. In my plum colored daisy, which is my favorite color daisy. And I'm just kind of looking at it from this way and seeing if I like the petals. I dragged my hand across here with wetness, so I made some marks. So I'm actually going to just add in some more petals to cover some of those marks. But we're going to do something at the end that also helps that too. Okay, so I'm going to go back in and start playing around with my area in here, and I'm doing all kinds of purples and pinks. So I'm going to take the same pink that I started with. Remember, this is the iris. This is what I call the iris. And now that my center is a plum brown, I'm doing this original fuchsia around the edges. I'm going to take that purple that I did on the edge of the petals, and I'm just bopping this in there. It's kind of like a pounce or a sway back and forth. The motion can be however you want it. I just like the motion. I love the motion. Love the motion. Okay. So while that is wet, I'm going back in with and getting more pink and pulling that pink to merge with the purple. Again, it's wet on wet technique. So I've got those colors in there, that pink is in there, going back one more time with the pink and just having that a little bit brighter for the iris. And I've got this great, fun, funky daisy. Yay, I love funky daisies, love, love, love. Okay, so I'm going to show you another daisy. I'm going to go this way so that, because this is wet and I don't want to get that messed up when I turn the page, but I'm going to do a sideways daisy. So I'm going to do a little bit of blue here and make a half circle. And this daisy, it's going to be as if you are looking at it from the side. But again, whimsical, not exact, not realistic. Okay, so that's my little center there. I'm going to take my blue again, and I'm coming off of that with my same kind of stroke that I did around the center of my pink one. And I'm going to be off the page, but remember, I don't want to just abruptly end. I want to go off the page and pretend like I'm still painting in the air, which means I pivot out here and come back. Pivot out there and come back. Like that. Okay. And then I'm going to take a teal color and I'm just going to highlight the left side. It's the same brush that I'm using, which I changed brushes, remember, in the last one. But this one I'm going to go ahead and do the same brush. I'm picking up teal, going down the edge and pivoting on those light blue petals. So similar technique. This is really watery though. And I'm going to make this one a little bit looser. I tend to start out a little bit more structured. This I know doesn't look structured, but for me that's pretty structured. And then I'm going back and forth between my blue and my teal and filling out this space. So as I'm laying down more blue to make these petals darker, I'm going to start taking that excess paint that's on my brush that I have right here and fill in the gaps between the petals. If I want it fuller, you may not want it fuller. Some people don't do Gerber daisies. They do a regular, or they do a hippie daisy. Well, they're all hippie daisies to me because daisies just are my thing. So I have fun with them. And I've been making daisies like this for, I don't know, longer than 20 years. Whoops. And it's funny because I knew I wanted to paint daisies for people tonight for a paint-in. One of my students is calling it a paint-in, which I love that idea. And I thought, oh, well, let me see what's new that I can teach. And they're like, no, I do these the same way. Well, not the same way. I mean, every time I do it, it's going to come out different. But I love them so much. So there you go. Okay, so I've got this cute little daisy hanging out on its side here. I'm going to just put a little bit of movement in this part right there. And I dropped my brush, but I happen to have another one. I'm going to take that plum brown and I'm going to add, I know we're sideways here, but I'm going to add a stem. So I'm going to go through this opening right here and have that stem right there, adding a little bit more brown into it. It's a plum brown. And again, I usually paint the direction something grows, but because I want a fine line in there, I painted from the actual flower down. Okay, so how do I close this gap? That's wet. There's some white in there, and I really don't want that white to be in there. So I'm going to go back in with my blue and just extend over these petals to show or to cover that white gap. And if it ends up being darker in that area, I can end up being darker in some of the other areas too. To do a leaf on there, I'm going to take some green, and daisy leaves have this kind of notch, and then a notch, and then a notch. It's almost like mini trees, I always think of for daisy leaves. So then they have this kind of like that. So I'm making that leaf. I'm going to take a darker teal color green and go ahead and put in some ideas of a vein, and then that darker teal color green is actually what's going to come and connect it to my stem. And a lot of times what I like to do when I've got my leaves going on there like that, make some more green in there, darker green, is I like to then take my green and go up the stem a little bit. So yes, I realize I have a really big daisy and a small little stem, but you know, that's the proportions I've got. Okay, so now that that is a little bit dry, that pink, I'm going to show you some finishing touches. I have a little bit of white acrylic paint, and I'm going to take a whitewash of that paint, which means I've put a good bit of water in there, and I am making it pretty white, pretty much of a wash. And I'm just going to go over in some of these places. As you can see, I am not paying attention to really doing it in a specific petal. I'm just coming out from that fringe and moving into the petal itself with the white paint. And if I've got too much of a wash, I can go into the areas that weren't so wet. So some of those might have a little bit too much water, so I can go back over with some paint. I don't want it to be too dark, too white. And just wherever I see that I need some lift, that's the highlights in there. And again, I'm not painting realistic. This is just painting happy. This is all it is. It's painting happy. It's a relaxation for me. I hope it's a relaxation for you, especially something like daisies. Art journaling is so important to me. I've taught it for over 20 years, and in class, I talk about how our different art expressions help to shine a light on our voice that we have inside. And so these little recaps or these little videos of the technique is just something for you to just, have some fun and learn the technique. But art journaling isn't about the technique. Art journaling is about the release and the expression. So it is a journey. Okay, now that I've got that white in those petals, I'm going to take the back tip of my brush. I'm going to dip it in my white some more, add just a couple of dots right there, and then I'm going to take a fine line, or a smaller brush, I guess. I'm not going to do a fine line, and I'm going to actually just do some spots in my fringe. Again, turning my book all the way around. I don't have to do it all the way around, but I'm going to. And when that dries, it's going to kind of seep more into the paint that's underneath. Using my small brush, the smaller flower. And just in some areas that are a little bit closer to the cone part. And if I get white where I don't want it to be, then I can just, get some of the watercolor, go back over it. That's it. And because I love the little dots, I might just do a couple little dots right down there. Maybe a little collection of dots in that area. This is whimsical. I can do whatever I want. When that is dry, I can take a black pen, and I usually use these either ultra fine Sharpies or fine Sharpies. They're permanent. They are not necessarily archival. So if you are worried about that, you would want to get an archival pen. And for archival pens, I like these Prismacolors. They actually come in a set. I like this set. But I used those the other night when my paint was wet, so I ruined the tips of just about all of those. So yeah, isn't that great? Yay! Okay, so as this is still drying just a little bit, I can show you, actually I'll do it on this one because this one is dry. So I've added some white already in there. I'm going to take this Sharpie and just add, and I usually do this like little line that has a squiggle at the end of it. And again, not on all of them because that would be kind of redundant. But just look and see where it needs something. And then sometimes I'll even take a pen, like I was showing you earlier, and write words in a long scrawl so that you can really, if you, at first glance, it just looks like it's more detail or fun on there. But if you spend time looking, you'll see those words are on there. So the other thing that I love to use are watercolor pencils. These are Derwent Inktense pencils, and I'm just going to show you the beauty of what these do. You can actually draw with these like a regular colored pencil and then leave them alone if you want to. Or you can put marks or draw or do whatever you want to. And I've just gone all the way around in some areas and take some water, and go over those lines that I just put in and see how they just bring in even more of a pop. So the Inktense, I love. Really, the things that I've shown you, these techniques, I do these, you know, in a variety of different things that I'm painting. I paint daisies so much because I love them. Look how pretty that is. How pretty it is. Yay! Love it, love it, love it. Okay, the very last thing that is always fun for people to enjoy for a bit is to pick a color. I'm going to pick this teal right here. I'm going to load this color up with paint water. I know, I should be doing that. If you're doing this at home, get some clean water. A spray bottle is always the best thing to use, which I don't have right beside me. So this is a case of, you know, do as I say, not as I do kind of thing. So, but that's okay. And then take another brush that is dry, dip your brush into this wet paint, and just give it a little splatter. That's a great way to take away some of the power of the white and make it festive. And there you have it. All right, well, thank you everybody for painting daisies with me. I am so excited that you get to see what I have a bunch of in my journal, actually. I put daisies everywhere. Those people that take art journaling with me know that I have daisies popping in every little place. That's, my heart is a daisy, bleeding purple. So anyways, and if you enjoyed it and you want to join us for art journaling, I teach art journaling live on Zoom Monday nights and Tuesday nights. The beauty of that is that you can register for either night, Monday or Tuesday, but you can come to either night. So if you register for Mondays and sometime during the month you realize that Tuesday that week is going to be better, then you come on Tuesdays instead of Mondays. Just pop me an email and say, hey, I'll see you Tuesday instead of Monday. And vice versa. If you register for Tuesdays and one week you find that Monday is better, go ahead and come to the Monday class. I do the same class, the same technique, the same prompt on both Monday and Tuesday of the same week. But of course the class is always different and I teach it a little bit differently each time I do it, just because I don't repeat anything. It's not a video though, it is live. So what I do then after that Monday or Tuesday night, on Wednesday I come back, Wednesday or Thursday, and I record a brief video, brief for me, which sometimes gets a little long, of the technique that I taught. So I believe art journaling is all about the journey. It's the expression of our voice that we are digging down deep to unearth. And so it's not about the art to me. It is about going through this process. The art is a pre-writing to what we can actually communicate. And then in my journal, I do a lot of writing, but some people don't do any writing. Some people just do quotes. So I really like the fact that then I'm coming back and doing this little technique video that I will email you a link, and then you can watch that link whenever it's convenient to you. You'll be able to watch that video. You can pause it, you can replay it, you can look closely at certain things. You can do whatever that's a little different than just having a class Monday or Tuesday nights. So I hope you can join us. If you have any questions, just send me an email, and other than that, I'll see you again. Thanks. Bye-bye.